Okay, so I have this code sandbox for useState hook practice. The link is there, and this was something that I got from the App Brewery. Purchased their course through Udemy. It's worth checking out their website, and they have a whole bunch of courses. It's very awesome. So this challenge is about demonstrating useState in React. And you can see there's lots of different files on the side. I'm mostly interested in this index.js and app.jsx. The challenge is written here in this index.js, given that you can get the current time using let time equal new date to local time string. So the latest time in the heading when the get time button is pressed. Given that you can get code to be called every second using the set interval method, can you get the time in your heading to update every second? Uncomment the code below to see hey printed every second. So we can do that, and you can see, hey, printed every second. So we don't need that, but I am going to take this set interval method and move it over into my app component. This is an app component in React with returning JSX down here. So I have a div with a heading with time, and I actually have a start time and stop time. These are buttons that I've added. I think originally this code sandbox starts with a single button, but I have two because I want to start the time running and stop time. So I'm just going to delete the stop button for now. This app is exported into and then imported and rendered here in the index.html file. So first of all, we want to try and get the time being displayed in this heading here. So I can actually do that. They've already given me here this method to use to get the time. So why don't we set that to now? And why don't we, so this is new date to local time string. I know already that I want to local date string. I know already that I want my time to be formatted to local time string. That's the one I wanted. I know already that I want my time string to be formatted like this. I don't want this PM, so I'm actually just going to copy the British string here and throw that in there. I already know that. And I could actually console.log. Oh. Now to show you that. Let's refresh, and there we go. Console log now. It's 10:50 and 58 seconds. It's 10:51. So instead of console logging that, I want it to display here. Now I could do that by just putting now in here, and look, there we go. Now we have the time displayed in the heading, but I know I'm going to have to modify this and keep track of the changes, and I want React to re-render this component, this date string that's displayed to the user every time it changes. So the way I'm going to do that is useState. So I'm going to import useState from React, and then I'm going to use state to store the time. So if you're not familiar, this is the way that you initialize useState. I'll explain this. So here I have an array with these two objects, the time, which is the current state, and then I have a method to be able to set the state. That's usually you name it like this, with whatever the state is. So here, in my case, it's the time, and set time, or set count, or set state, or whatever it is, set color, set show, set hide, whatever you want to call this. But I put set in front of whatever it is that is the state. And then this useState method I declare here, and then I have these brackets, messed that up, with the initial state that I want time to have. So here I put now, which is that variable that I've initialized up here with the current time. So if we actually console log, in fact, we're not going to console log. We're just going to change this down here to time. So that's me calling the state, the current state of time down here in the heading. And I think it already changed, but let's refresh it just to make sure. It's showing me 10:53, and I can see up on my clock here 10:53. So that's working. The thing I want to do now is I actually want to be able to get that time to count up. So I have this set interval function. So the first thing I have to think about it doing is getting that set interval to actually run. So let's do a start time function that's going to use this set interval method. So let's just change this, just make sure it works. So we're going to console log hi every second. I need to be able to start this, so I'm going to on click, I'm going to use this start time function. So I should be able to now on click. Okay, that's not quite working. I think that's because this needs to call a function. So why don't we call another function here? Let's call this update the time, and we're just gonna console log hi, and we're gonna call this update time. Why don't we just console log this as time? So this set interval method has to call another method, has to call another function, and this is the interval that I'm using. So here, let's try this. Let's try this time. Okay, so now it's working. So now you can see that set interval is calling this update time function and console logging time every second. Well, I don't really want that. I want to console log the time every second. So I have to actually, the thing is, if I just console log time, let's refresh this. It's going to console log the same time every second. So I need to be able to get the new time every second. So I could actually take this and put it down here. And so we're going to get a new time. Whenever I call this update time function, I'm going to get a new time. And so now if I change this to new time, hopefully now, if I refresh this and I click start time, I get a new time every second. So that's what I want. But the thing is I don't want to console log it. I want to be able to display it down here. I need to change this time, the state of time, so that this React sees the change and re-renders this component showing the user the new time. So the way I'm going to do that is just by at the end of this update time function, I'm going to set the time to the new time. And now, hopefully, if I start the time, that clock updates. So the thing is, the other part of the challenge was to actually stop this, which is relatively straightforward in comparison. that already demonstrates how state works, but let's stop the time as well. So we're going to have a function that stops the time. We're going to have a button that's connected to that function that stops the time. And basically I need to stop this set interval method. So there is actually a way to do that. If we go into the docs, you can see, let's go to set interval. Here we go. And it tells us this method returns an interval ID which uniquely identifies the interval, so you can remove it later by calling clear interval. Okay, great. So I know that when this is called, I'm going to get an ID, and if I console log the ID, let's try that. So when I hit this start time button, it's going to call this start time function, and I get the ID of my interval, which is great. So I need to save that ID somehow. If I click again, I get a different ID. So that ID is changing, so I need to be able to store that ID somewhere. I can use state for that too. So we actually could put the interval ID and we can set it to, it's a number, so we can set it to 0 to start with. So down here I can actually set the interval ID to, doing that wrong, to the ID each time I start the time. And down here I can clear the interval with the interval ID. So over here we can test that out. Start time, timer's counting, stop time, timer stops. I actually think it's not 100% necessary really to use state for this interval ID, because it's actually not something I need React to keep track of. I don't need it to re-render anything. Do I need it to re-render anything? When I clear the interval, it's not updating the time anymore. So there shouldn't be any more re-render. So I think that I could actually use ref for this. Maybe it's not use ref. Hold on a second. Yeah, okay, so I actually changed this bottom one to use ref. I guess it doesn't really matter if you use state, but I think use ref is more appropriate in this situation, because the interval ID isn't something that's actually rendered. We don't want React to keep track of the interval ID and decide whether to do a re-render based on the changes to interval ID. So actually using ref is more appropriate here. So I can initiate, I actually put useRef up here, imported it from React. UseRef is set to 0 to start off with. Construct interval ID equals useRef 0. And then down here, you have to call interval ID.current to mutate the interval ID to this ID. And then down here, you have to actually again call interval ID.current to read the current value. So this works the same. So you can see start time. He says it's counting. Stop time. Hold on a second. Start time. Stop time. It stops. Start time. Stop time. it stops. So